junky TV.
I'm a mess. I am a mess. Okay, so I wanted to talk about, let me get my notes. There will come a time when I'm using a teleprompter or something. I don't know. I just need to be uninhibited, I guess, a little bit more so. So this is what my subject is on. But what I wanted to talk about was the reasons that children stop feeling their feelings and they stop dreaming. Now, this has been a huge, interesting subject for me because I really am fascinated by child development and understanding why children, have the issues that they do once they're older into adulthood, like myself on my own journey. And I think that's the main reason for why I have such a desire to, in a sense, maybe not figure it out, but understand where I'm coming from in my healing and transformation for myself. And I believe that's why I have such a fascination with understanding the psychology behind why people do what they do and what causes people to do what they do and what motivates people and what causes people to not change and what causes people to change. So one of the subject was, or one of the subjects that I've been thinking about was, because as I'm going through this transformation for myself, I'm trying to understand my feelings and where those feelings are stemming from. And obviously I know, well, I don't know if it's necessarily obvious, but the reason that I have those feelings are because they continue to upwell. And what I mean by that is, have you ever had those experiences where you feel like you're going along and you're, riding the waves of life and things seem to be doing well, but you'll have ebbs and flows, that kind of thing. But then you also have this sense, and maybe you're not like this, but for me on my journey, I've noticed that I'll do really, really well as far as psychologically and with my feelings and emotions and trying to solidify exactly where those things are stemming from for me. But then what starts to happen is I start to become unraveled. Like, I start to feel like, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling these things? Why haven't I overcome this particular situation or this friendship that turned sour? Or, and then you go on this bout, or I have went on this bout of kind of like these emotions, these waves of emotions of like, I don't understand why I'm feeling this way. So anyway, one of the things that I've started to really recognize and start to really understand, because we can know certain things psychologically and we can know things literally, like through textbooks or learning these things, going to school, but knowing certain things and believing certain things to me are two different things, because you can know something intellectually and still be on that other wave of not understanding and believing it, because if you don't believe it, it doesn't matter whether you know it or not, because you don't believe it, right? So one of the things that I have been studying anyway is, I'll get onto the subject, I promise y'all. You girls, you know how I am. I will sit and ramble. Anyway, I hope this is recorded. So one of the things that's been very, very interesting to me is my feelings of not letting certain past relationships go. Like, I think I'm doing really good, and in the beginning I would get to the point to where it was like, sever the friendship and I'll stop following them and I'll block them on social media and I'll do this and I'll do that. But that never really works, because it's only like a fix for feeling that our ego is going to protect us. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can do it, and it's totally understandable if you do. I have done it on my journey as well. I totally get it. But it doesn't really fix the problem. And I don't know if fix would be the word to use, because I don't ever want to feel like I'm trying to fix myself. I want to feel like I'm learning to understand myself and go through this journey. And it's not a destination, it is a journey for me. And so I never want to feel like I'm completely fixed. Do you know what I mean? Like, so many people want to be fixed, or they want to fix other people in order to think that that is going to bring them joy and happiness. So along my journey of discovering these two particular things, I wanted to go back to childhood, like infancy. Oh, excuse me. And understand where children come into play and what actually starts to happen to children once they reach and peak at a certain age. Like, where is all this stuff coming from that we no longer feel feelings, or we feel guilty because we feel feelings when we're young and we stop feeling them, and what is causing this, and how we can get back onto, you know, that river and start going with the flow again, and understanding and being receptive of whatever comes in and whatever goes out, and the flow of the whole cycle of life, right? So we know two things when children come into the earth, right? They are, first of all, they're very uninhibited. They think that they can do anything they want, and they do for the most part, right? So they come in very uninhibited, like they use the bathroom on themselves. They laugh when they want. They cry when they want. They do whatever they want. They're not inhibited. So the other thing that they do is that they're very spontaneous. They will do whatever they want, whenever they want. Have you ever noticed, like, when children start to get into that 2-year age? I don't know, that was when my children were young. Like, my children are grown now, but when my children were that age, they get into that stage. I don't know if it's 2s, I want to say 3s too, also, is that they say they don't want to do anything. You know, if they don't want to do something, they don't want to do it. And they feel like, as little children, I don't have to do that. Do you know? Like, I don't have to do that. But then what starts to happen to them is that as they grow and as they gain, you know, in growth, they start to be conditioned through us as parents in a way of fear of failure, right? Because if children believe that they're not going to get love, like if their love is based on conditions of them being obedient and, you know, don't do that. Because I know, even as a mother, on my journey as a mother, when my children were young, I would say, don't do that, stop doing that, quit misbehaving, you know. And then they learn what happens. They learn to become conditioned upon their response to whatever they're going to do. Like, oh, I can't do that for fear of, you know, not receiving love from this particular person that is of their circle of influence, right? Their mother or father or whoever is raising this child. And so what happens is they become extremely traumatized. And so if you were to say, I mean, because we have this innate ability and belief within us when we're born, because we're spirit beings, that we won't receive love, which is something that is vital to living, that we start to become conditioned, and we will start to follow into that line of sheer obedience, right? And whereas before, the children were uninhibited and spontaneous, and they believed that they could do anything. But over time, as the parent conditions this child in this particular realm, they start to believe that they can't do things. Like, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that, because ultimately the driving internal nature of them is, if I do that, I may run the risk of losing love, so they will not do that, so they will comply, right? And a lot of times, I think a lot of times this also goes in with us conditioning our children with guilt and unworthiness. And they're kind of like twin sisters. Like, guilt and unworthiness go hand in hand. Like, they're twin sisters, and you can't have one without the other, kind of thing, right? Well, a lot of times too, our guilt is based on if you have come from a childhood where your family was very guilt oriented, and that's the way that their parents conditioned them to believe, they will in turn, obviously it's a chain reaction, you know what I'm saying? Like they will teach their children, and they live in guilt, and then they will right? And so, but what you have to do is you have to like completely change that around and just say, like, call people on the odds of that. Like, are you trying to make me feel guilty right now? Because what'll happen is it'll kind of like a knee-jerk reaction is like, no, what do you mean? Like, but that's really what they're doing. So people will try that are conditioned to believe that guilt is the way to do it. And a lot of religions are that way too. Guilt and control through manipulation, right? So you have to be mindful that when you are in a religion, if you choose to be in a religion, or you choose not to be in a religion, but if you're in a religion, most of the time, parents are conditioning children in a manipulative way and a controlling nature and through fear. And the reason I say that is because along my journey, that is how I was conditioned to believe, is that, and so now I'm trying to rework that understanding of that was just a conditioned belief system that I was given. It really doesn't have anything to do with my particular spirituality with my Father in heaven and my relationship with him, because all of that was like man-made. That's not literally what God is a force and control and manipulation. Our higher self, we should know that, but for some reason we go along life and are conditioned to believe. I guess that's the reason why, right? We're conditioned to believe that way. So unless you start having a higher elevation of thinking, you're going to believe that. And you're going to live that way in your life, and therefore raise your children in that kind of atmosphere as well. So the other thing that I wanted to say is that the reason that I wanted to talk about that is because I feel like it's vital for us to not teach our children that. And if you already have children that are older and grown like mine, all my kids are grown. So what I've done, I've already done. It's not like I can really work to undo what I've done. What we have to do from that point, that standpoint, is we have to therefore learn the rules and ways of kind of turning that on its head, because once you've already conditioned someone to believe a certain way, then it's going to have to be that particular person to have to uncondition themselves in that particular manner, because that's just how it is. I mean, you can't undo something that you already done. Only that person now can only undo what was done to them. Does that make sense? So here's some steps that are going to help you. In the next video, I'd love for you to do the tips that I'm going to give you to help you to know what you can do to kind of turn this around. And you can't change things that are already done, but you can make things better upon what you have done. And the one thing is we don't want to live in guilt, and we don't want to live in that sense of feeling like, oh, look what I did. Why did I do that? You can't live in guilt, and you can't believe that that's a terrible thing that's happened, that you trained your children this way and it was a negative thing, because everything happens for a reason, and it's all supposed to be divinely in order in the way that it is. So don't fret, but I would love it if you would watch the next video. And as always, I'm yours until my next swim. Ciao! Bye, you guys! Have a great weekend!
Away with me on Mermaid Junkie TV.